Hey guys, what's going on? Shaw here, and today in this video we're going to take a look at 18 the other side on a fortified week in the new affix. So this is the new season that we are finally in. If you've taken a break from the game, the new season has finally dropped. It's been a long time coming. The new affix is called Tormented, and this is actually my first time I think doing a breakdown for this season, and I plan to do several more. But what made me really excited to cover this run in particular was the fact that it was like top US 100 run at the time. This was during Mythic Week, so it was the first week that the Mythic Race was available, or Mythic Raid was available, and the World First Race was going on. I think we did this, Thursday or Friday, like late into the evening. So we weren't too geared. I think I'm actually personally wearing still most of my Castle Nathria loot. So I am not like a crazy geared player. This is the very start of the season, so I just want to get that out of the way. Most of these guys are also in that Castle Nathria loot with some heroic loot. I'm not really in a mythic guild currently, or not rating very high-end mythic. So I'm probably going to end up cutting this part out, actually. So I really just wanted to go over our general idea for routing. We ran a few the other sides before this run, and we tried to settle on a route that we wanted to execute. And in this run, you're seeing kind of the final edition of our route that we used here. We finished with about 3 minutes left or so. And again, this was the second week, so this was Fortified, Inspiring, Grievous, and of course the new affix Tormented. So let's dive in. So first thing first, I kind of want to talk about what I'm doing here. So I obviously pop Incarnation on pull. I am playing Venthyr. No, I am not a new Venthyr Druid. I've been playing Venthyr since Shadowlands has come out. So playing around Ravenous Frenzy is something that I've always been used to. It's something that my group has been used to, so it's nothing new. So what I'm doing is I'm popping Incarnation and Ravenous Frenzy at the start of the dungeon to make sure that I have it for this first pull. The reason for that is because I'm trying not to use my actual Incarn during this pull, so I can have it up for the next pull, because we're going to make two fairly large pulls back to back. Now, of course, this is something that we've seen before. You pull the two mobs on the stairs as well as everything at the bottom, and you just kind of blow your load early along with Hero. So we did Lust this pull. It fades like right at the end. There's just this Warlord left with about 5 seconds of Hero. So it was like a perfectly like optimized Hero. I think we got a full effect out of it, and it pretty much killed the pull for us. So this route is essentially us trying to clear the entire outer ring, Muzala's ring. We're trying to get all of our anima powers first and foremost before getting into like the pulls in the dungeon. This is because this is the power curve that you're going to get. These mobs aren't too difficult to deal with. At least I wouldn't consider this a low key now, but an 18 is definitely going to be a low key in the future. But this is going to be the pridefuls. So it's basically like trying to stack a prideful buff up, if you want to think of it like that. So we're doing this big pull right away, which is, again, something that we've kind of seen standardized out of Season 1. So this is what I saved Incarn for. We also had our Hunters cooldowns, as well as Ashen Hollow. So this pack is also going to go down pretty quickly. As you can see, the Hunter and myself are actually top the damage meters. And then after this, we're going to go into our first mini-boss. So on an Inspiring week, this is kind of a tough pack, and that's why I wanted to save Incarn for it, because when you can't land as many kicks as you'd like because of Inspiring, it's just best to have a large defensive cooldown up here. I also at some point used the Survival Instincts. I don't remember if that was this pull or last pull, but you just want to be kind of aggressive with these cooldowns at the start, because a lot of the other pulls in the dungeon are going to be pretty easy. So I'm eventually going to do guides on these guys, but this guy essentially puts a nasty dot on a player. Typically it's a ranged player. I have seen it go in melee, but I think that's been when it's all melee groups. So healer just needs to make sure they're keeping them topped up, and then you just want to dodge these swirls for the most part. And of course the typical Jaina frontal that we've seen, and it's actually a really, really cool animation where he does this frost lance and he blasts this like whole thing of ice forward. Pretty cool. So our comp, I kind of want to talk about our comp a little bit, because this isn't something you've seen in a while. I feel like Hunters and Monks kind of fell off towards the end of Season 1. And some other classes like Boomkin and Elite Shaman have really made their way into the meta. Hunters just got insanely buffed, as well as they have some really cool items that they can get from the new raid. So Kennek is a outstanding hunter that I've been able to play with the last couple weeks. And I'm looking forward to pushing the rest of the season with him. But he is also playing Kyrian, so he has really aggressive cooldowns every minute with double tap plus res arrow. And then he also has, of course, True Shot Arrow playing Marksman. And Hunters just do insane damage. You can actually see the overall currently. Our Windwalker and our Hunter are well above 12k here. Something else that we're running is a Shadow Priest. The Shadow Priest actually recently swapped to Night Fae, so he's still getting used to like the CDR you can get with the Fae Guardians. So we're running like a kind of a unique comp. We don't really play off each other. I guess the Monk is buffing mine and Kennec's damage with that the Mystic Touch debuff, but nothing's really going to be buffing our Priest, Sacerdos. So the comp is pretty unique, and then obviously you're going to see that Venthyr Holy Paladin bring a lot of damage and bring pretty good healing. They pair really, really well with Guardian Druids. So I've always been healing with the Holy Paladin, but I'm now Horde, as some of you may know already. So I have had to find a new group of people to play with, but I'm having a blast pushing so far. So this is a pull that you haven't been able to see in Season 1, because typically if you did this route, you would actually have to split these guys up because you would get Prideful during this pull. But now, without Prideful, you're able to pull these together and use aggressive cooldowns again. So we have Weapons of Gorder going out. We have things like Mindbender coming up. So we're able to just chain these really aggressive cooldowns. We had Resonating Arrow down there. So that's going to provide a big boost of damage. As you can see at the damage meters, we just have both of our DPS doing like 20 plus K. So really aggressive pull. I actually like the other side now because you can really get aggressive because there's no longer this like 20% break point. So you can do Arden Weld a lot more aggressive. You can do obviously like this outer ring on Muzala's platform really aggressively, which has just been a lot of fun to do. Now, of course, you want to be careful of these warlords though. Get these Sooths out. We have two of them luckily, so it's myself and Kennec. So I'm basically always going to do orange, and Kennec is going to be doing star. We may switch this up depending on what I accidentally fat finger or what I accidentally like tab target to, but for the most part, I'll get it first, followed by Kennec. Now, something that you might see some groups do is do this ring, but what my group decided to do this week specifically is we actually went into Mechagon to grab the Executioner buff and to give our group a little bit of time for cooldown reduction. And the reason for this is because the Executioner damage, especially like for all of like Ardenweld and some of the bosses in here, and some of these single target pulls, the Executioner buffs, whether it's Champion's Brand or whether it's going to be like the Volcanic Plume or the Necrotic Wound, these buffs are going to give your DPS like a pretty good damage increase over the course of a key. Of course, it's not what we saw in PTR before the season actually went live, but it is significant enough to notice yourself like doing more damage by the end of the dungeon. So that's why we're doing it. So kind of standard drill play, we're going to just tuck it in LOS. And then after this, we're going to go into the mini boss. So I'm actually just going to let this play out here. I might fast forward it a little bit just to kind of get through, because this wing is pretty boring. Now, I mentioned it in my Sanguine Depths video, but this affix, it's growing on me a little bit because there's some interesting interactions that some of these powers have with the dungeon. So for example, Necrotic Wake, these powers like Champion's Brand specifically scale really well into weapons. So you're seeing some classes being able to do some stuff with the weapons that we haven't really been able to see before, because like you can get absolutely out crazy crit or mastery rating, which might actually amplify the damage you're doing. I'm going to have to do a video about that soon, though I think they just stealth nerfed the weapons in Necrotic Wake finally after like the last year of them being utterly overpowered. That's a different subject though for another time. So in this dungeon specifically, there's a boss that does heal. It's Hakar. He puts out his blood barrier, which is a damage absorption. Necrotic Wound from this guy specifically is actually going to make Hakar's blood barrier smaller than it would normally be. So those kind of interactions are really interesting. There are certain weeks where it's like, okay, this dungeon has a lot of kicks and we're running a comp that, like, for example, let's say Kennec was on a Boomkin. So we have a 45-second cooldown kick and a minute cooldown kick. Volcanic Plume is a really good thing to have because you can constantly knock up enemies, right? So those kind of decisions are really kind of cool. I definitely just accidentally rewound it. So those kind of decisions I think are really cool. Now, the healer powers are pretty boring. Some of the like Regenerative Fungus is actually kind of cool because like on a Grievous week like this week, it's going to help the DPS survive a little bit better. So there are some kind of interesting decisions that I like, but for the most part, at least as a tank, I am picking the same powers every time. And from my understanding, healers are also for the most part picking the same power. So I think that's really boring. And I think the mini bosses are kind of a waste of time. Like I think the power you get from them isn't enough to justify pulling them. But when you're running a comp like this, or like you are confident enough in your route that you're going to time it, you can afford to pull them, and it's going to give you a small like power creep. So I still have to do a video on this. I just moved into a new apartment, so I'm kind of still getting settled in a little bit. But more videos are definitely going to come. I definitely want to do a video though, talking about my overall analysis of what this affix means for the meta and all that stuff. So So Rage Mob goes down. We don't really use a lot of cooldowns there, so it just kind of went down. We committed like Aura Mastery plus Wings and Ashen Hollow. So healing cooldowns, but not DPS cooldowns. This is another standard pull that you would see. Just a note for people who don't know, even if a mob is inspired, or an inspiring mob is in that pack, these urns will still stun everything. So everything just got stunned there after Sacerdos or Sac P hit that urn. So things still got stunned. There's people who always ask that question, like, oh no, there's inspired, we can't use the urn. That's not how it works. It overrides that buff. That would be so troll for all Night Fae players if like the dungeon power that they get isn't usable because like of the weekly effects. That'd be insane. So luckily it does work. So pretty easy pull, especially when you're committing a lot of cooldowns. So we had Weapons of Order there, True Shot, Res Arrow. We used Mindbender. And now for this guy, I think Anthony is going to go into, or Sac P is going to go into Void form, and we're going to get this guy down pretty quick. This guy, again, I didn't talk about the Executioner, which again, I will in a future video. This guy's pretty easy though. Basically you just need to kick 2 Infernos. It has a 12-ish second cooldown. There's a point later in his encounter when you pull him that he's gonna like have a weird spell queuing, so you actually can like push, like the kick is actually a little bit longer, but on average it's about 12 to 13 seconds between Inferno cast. So you can either commit a Shaman to kicking every single one, or you just commit 2 melee DPS. Now obviously if you're running a really wonky comp like double mage boomkin, like you might have to rotate some kicks, and then just the tank needs to kick all the time. So pretty easy, and then range can bait those giant red pools on the ground. They'll never go in melee unless, of course, you're playing with all melee, which is something that you normally don't see as often. So range players, just make sure you're not in melee when you're doing that mini boss. And now we get the long trek into Ardenweld. Like I said, I just moved into a new place, so I'm hoping to start producing videos, a lot more videos soon. It's been just crazy couple of weeks and months. Obviously, I haven't been making much. I just needed a little bit of a break. The season got long. I had some like guild stuff go on. I was, you know, just pretty busy with in-game and out-of-game stuff. So look forward to more content. Now this Ardenweld pull, and this is another pull that I talked about, or I was talking about earlier, is that you can be really aggressive with your pulling because of the fact that you're no longer tied to 20% breakpoints, which isn't a fix. Like those kind of affixes I've never really enjoyed as a tank player. I hated reaping. I know a lot of DPS loved reaping, and there's obviously a lot of reasons for that. Things like uncapped AoE back in BFA was insanely fun for reaping. There's also ways to like skip reaping pretty easily too, with like Night Elf skips and death skips and stuff. So reaping was a little bit more enjoyable, but like anything with a 20% breakpoint as a tank, I hate, because the route can get messed up so easily. This is, so again, like I said, that was an aggressive pull without cooldowns. And then we're going to just do Sagadan the Breaker by himself. This guy's actually, I would argue, is the easiest. He does a little bit of burst AoE damage on the group, and then he grips everyone and roots them. Now, these roots can be broken with several things. Blink, Soul Shape, you can dwarf shadows out of this as well. You can obviously Shapeshift form, Freedom, Tiger's Lust. There's a lot of things, but honestly, at the end of the day, just you can probably hit them and just like kill them fast enough before anyone actually gets smashed. Even on like this 18, those things just died so quick. And like our DPS aren't doing like anything astronomical, right? Like their damage is fairly standard, I would say, for like an 18 fortified DOS. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind. Just make sure you're just killing them. Sagadan is probably like the one mob you can skip, because in most circumstances, the last boss is only going to be doing physical damage on the tank, and tanks are easily sturdy enough to be able to like take a little bit of extra melee damage. But of course it depends on the skill level of your tank in your group. So if you feel like you need to skip this guy, or you don't need the defensive power, feel free to skip him. So typically Stoneward is always going to be taken. It has really high value on the tank. I don't remember what the DPS options are. I think they're all the same, but I might be wrong about that. And then again, 20% breakpoint no longer exists, so we're going to be crazy aggressive with this pull here. I have Incarnation up with Ravenous Frenzy, so like I shouldn't die. Though our priest definitely just accidentally like grabbed a bunch of dudes. So this is an insane pull. Again, inspiring, can be nearby, and they won't get affected, or they will get affected by the urn still. So we're gonna do some pretty good damage here. I'm already popping off at like 30k. Our hunter and our monk are catching up, and then of course Sac P being on that Shadow Priest is gonna start doing insane damage here with that Searing Nightmare, and he's gonna start pumping off around that 31k. Again, this is a pretty standard pull too. You'd see a lot of groups pull everything onto the urn here, and then you just AoE it down. I know like this week specifically that I'm recording this video, it's necrotic. after the stun wears off, you pretty much want to like get your last couple hits in for aggro, and then you want to start kiting because necrotic stacks go up insanely high when you have 50 mobs hitting you. Of course, this pull is doable, and with Incarnation up, you typically don't even need to worry about necrotic until it expires. I've survived being at 99 stacks of necrotic before with Incarnation up, so something to be too scared of. And now this is a pull that I see a lot of tanks mess up, is right after they do that large pull, they try to pull big again. And with those Blade Beak debuffs, you can't. So if you can see it up in my right-hand corner, it's about 3 seconds left at 21 stacks. If I pulled something else in that reset, I would die almost immediately without Incarnation or rolling really heavy cooldowns. So essentially what I'm doing here is it's what I call a CDR pull. It's basically what we're doing is we're just waiting for cooldowns to come back up before we pull aggressive again. So I'm marking the Matriarch because I am going to be pulling it for count. A lot of groups don't like to do this, but I do because it gives everyone a good priority target with a lot higher health that they can hit into and cleave. So it gives everyone like something to hit for sure. So like arcane mages or like fire mages, whoever still plays that, or I mean any mage really, or a boomkin, a Venthyr boomkin is now very popular. It gives them something to hit that has a really, really big health pool. So this guy's at 70% already and still has 650k health. So he has close to 1 million health for someone to hit into. So that's why I'm pulling the Matriarch. You just want to be a little careful here though, because you can't actually kite the Matriarch that well because it can't be slowed. It's immune to like Ring of Peace. It's immune to roots and all that fun stuff. So you can kite a little bit, but for the most part, you want to make sure the Matriarch is going down ASAP pronto. But this is the last Blade Beak pull, so once this is done, you don't have to worry about stacks, so you can be really aggressive again. So I'm going to try to speed this up a little bit. Maybe my computer won't crash, and then we're going to check out the next pull. So I'm going about 25% faster. Matriarch, of course, still the last thing alive, despite everyone hitting into it. And then we're going to start chaining it down. I'm waiting for Incarn. It's about 2 seconds, and then boom, we're going to roll. I'm going to hit Incarn so I can spam that Thrash to make sure I'm getting all that aggro. And then we're going down. There are some little like invisible little Spriggans there, so you can dip in really quick, do a Thrash, do an AoE, a Thunderclap, Refreshing Jade Wind, or whatever it's called, and grab them. And this gives you like another 9 targets to hit, or 10 targets to hit. So this is really good for those like uncapped / like higher capped AoE players like a Monk or a Shadow Priest. So that's why we did this pull, and it just gets us a little extra count. Make sure we get a Dispel on Peanut. And now this is kind of awkward for us because Hero is up, but we don't have cooldowns for about 20 seconds. So what we're going to end up doing is sitting on Hero for just a little bit before, so we don't waste the Hero by like just smashing it when no one has anything to hit. Because of course, as some of you might know, Lust is a lot more valuable with cooldowns up than without cooldowns up. And obviously, like, yeah, you have 30% haste, but 30% haste into cooldowns is not just like an increased 30% damage. It can be as much as like 50 or 60% increased damage compared to when you don't have it up, where it might just be 30% increased damage. So I don't go up there, and here's the reason for this, and this is what I always explain to people, is that a big complaint about this boss is that I will take more damage from falling than I will from getting hit by that blast, which is actually really funny, especially with the change to his Arcane Lightning debuff. So what it used to do is it used to make you take more damage from all sources, which was a bug. And they changed it to only make you take more damage from having additional stacks keep ticking up, so if it keeps getting passed between the same player. So what would happen is if you didn't go up, this would like absolutely one-shot a tank, but instead it now just like makes you just take more damage just from that Arcane Lightning. So what I now do is I pop a Survival, I pop Bark Skin, wow, I'm stammering now, or I just make sure I have a Frenzied Regen active and I just stay down. So you let other DPS or healers go up first who would get one shot by this because they don't have as much versatility, for example. Outside of that, pretty easy boss. I'm just kind of rambling at this point. I do have a boss guide on this. I'll try to remember to link it up in the corner above, though the boss has been nerfed. So just keep that in mind when you are watching that video. It is a little outdated, but I'm gonna have to update it, throw it on the checklist of the million videos I need to make still. So dealer dies. Now what's nice about this is that we've cleared a lot of trash already, so our run back is actually going to give us good CDR. So we have True Shot coming up in about 20 seconds. We have Void Form and Mindbender, and then we have Weapons of Order in 50 seconds. But by the time we get to the pull where we need to do, we will have Weapons of Order up. So you can see the cooldowns all being tracked right here. And this is a super nice tool to use. I do have a video going over Omni CD, but of course, a lot of people use the Weak Aura now. What is it called? It's I honestly can't remember. Yikes. Leave it in the comment section below if you know what I'm talking about. There's a Weak Aura that track cooldowns. So this run is a little long. We'll probably end up just cutting this out. A lot of people would argue that running all the way back is kind of like a waste of time, but we've already cleared all this trash, so it was technically effective. And of course, having the extra powers are going to give us that power creep, like I said before. So I think it is worth. Now, of course, if you notice, our Weapons of Order is back up. So what I can do here is I have Incarnation. We have, of course, True Shot. We have Weapons of Order. We have Zuen. We have all those big buffs, those big damage. So we're going to just be able to absolutely annihilate this pull if we can get them to stack better than they are currently. So this is playing a little fast. That's why it looks like everyone's moving like a spaz. Paladins aren't necessarily this fast in real life, but I'm trying to get through this a little bit faster. I don't want this video to be 3 hours long. Like, it's already 21 minutes, which is insane. So as long as you're careful here, you can actually then pull these little dudes off to the right. I put down an Ursols and tag them, of course, if you're running Resto Affinity. If you're running like just Mass Entanglement, you can do that as well. Hit them with a Moonfire, then entangle them, and it should keep them in place. And then, of course, run out for Haywire here. Pretty standard. And then this is a nice pull because it's going to give you some of that cooldown reduction that I like to talk about all the time. So it's going to give the Shadow Priest plus the Monk time to get their cooldowns back up, of course. The next pull is kind of weird because we're trying to keep these guys like out and away, but they're inspired, so it's kind of difficult to do that. But I got lucky here, I think, with the Ursol's grip. It gripped the Inspired Mob back first, but then the other guys were still within range, and then it gripped them back too. And then you're going to pull this Lubricator back. I've seen groups that like pull this guy in with the other two, and they just like go super Chad, and they pull all three, which is definitely doable. All you have to kick here is the self-healing cast that they do. I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head. So this self-cleaning cycle, as long as you kick that, you're good. And they can be stunned, it can be kicked, it can be like I think it'd be blinded, but for the most part, the lubricate cast is 30 yards. So you can have all your range players just max range it, and then they don't take damage at all. So we have an engineer, so we stop this, and then I pull these two lubricators together. And of course, you're going to see the strategy here where the range are going to stay way back. If you look at my mini map, they're on the other side of the room, back where the council is, and the melee are going to move in. We have Ashen go down here, plus I think that's wings. No, it's no wings, just Ashen, and we're going to just basically assign kicks for the self-cleaning cycle. Really easy pull to pull off as long as you know what you're doing. The big thing is, like, don't panic. The lubricate won't one-shot you unless, like, for some reason they're bolstered or it's like an insanely high fortified week. And then, of course, if you have Volcanic Plume, which was an option from the Executioner, it has a chance to keep knocking these guys up in the air, which could be really good. So right there, it just happened mid-lubricate, though it didn't really interrupt the cast. But every time you see him get knocked up in the air, it's because Volcanic is going off. And then lastly, you have that one pull with these slime dudes right up here. Just kick as many as you can. Of course, Volcanic Plume is also nice here. These essential oils, which is always a fun joke. They do a lot of damage if they consistently keep hitting the same player. So if at least one of your players who does good AoE damage here does Volcanic Plume as an option, it will reduce a lot of damage and, of course, help kill them a little bit faster. So every time you see them knock up, it's that Volcanic Plume that's underneath their feet. So we're gonna fast forward a little bit faster, or a little bit more. This is just going into boss. Mana Storms are a little tricky. There's a lot going on here because there's two separate bosses with two separate different abilities. And some people kind of forget that they have to work together to effectively kill them. If you kill one too fast, you probably will wipe. So these power crystals give you a damage buff. So when you're soaking them, you're going to take more damage, but you're also going to deal more damage. So you want to either rotate people or use a DR while you're soaking it. So right there, this one goes unsoaked, which means just the tank's going to be taking more damage, but it's not a big deal because Guardian Druids are absolutely insane right now. And then, of course, these laser beams, you just want to move to either side. Typically, the player soaking the crystal won't move, and then the player not soaking the crystal will move to the opposite side that the other player is on. Best way to get a stun is doing that. So as you can see, Kennick is soaking. Para has the other one who moves to the opposite side of the boss, and we're going to get a nice little formation through him, stun him, and we're going to move him on. So it's every 3 casts of the stun ability for both Maleficent and Millhouse. So Millhouse will cast Shadow Fury, where Maleficent will cast that like stun laser. I don't know the name of it off the top of my head. And then, of course, when she's alive, just make sure you're trying to click these bombs. Sometimes I click them and sometimes I don't. I've had issues with clicking it. I know a lot of tanks just spam click it and then it works every time, but for me, sometimes it just doesn't. So just an option. I would have your most mobile DPS or your healer go out and do these, because more often than not, they don't always need to be healing you. They just need to be making sure you're not about to die. So paladins are really good at this with obviously like Holy Shock, Wogs, and of course Lay on Hands. So this Shadow Fury always should land to interrupt the chicken barrage. It is survivable without stunning her, but it's like you need immunities. Like Aura Mastery would have to be up. Everyone would have to like commit Health Pod, Health Stone, and self heal basically the whole time. So you don't want to do that. So essentially the rule of thumb is like if you want to do all your CDs on Millhouse, just make sure he doesn't hit 20 or 10% health. You want to keep him around like that 15, and then push Maleficent as far as you can, of course. So he's going to push at 10%, and then Maleficent's going to come back down for that last 46% of her health, or last 36% technically. So we'll just fast forward through. We do get the kill here. Peanut Walker did die, but I think he just took like a weird tick of the chicken barrage. So now we're heading to Hakar's Wing last. We still have 13 minutes. We do have hero up. Wait. I like fast forwarded too much. Oh well, we'll just do this. Just fast forward this a little bit. Have run faster. So Hakar's Wing is made really, really easy on most weeks as long as you have 1 or 2 players with Volcanic Plume, because you're always going to have like constant interrupts. Sometimes you don't even need to use stuns and kicks, but it just depends on how many players are running it. The more the merrier. So with 13 minutes left plus hero, we're going to end up heroing. I think we decided on doing it on Hakar because we didn't think we needed it. Now on Inspiring Weeks, I always recommend pulling this Priest back and then having your players go in to get stuns and stuff on the Devoted. Because if they transform, you lose the percent, plus they like make this hallway an absolute shit show. So we're going to just pull the Priest by herself. This will give time for Weapons of Order to come back up. Void Form just came up as well, and we're going to be able to go into a little bit more aggressive pull here. This wing is really difficult to pull like really aggressively because the amount of kicks you'll require and the damage in your tank is going to be pretty high, and there's like a group element where you can't be stacked if you get the lightning shot at you from the Hexers. So that mob dies. I'm going to pull the Hexer into the High Priest. The High Priest is going to be a little bit easier to kill because they run away at a lower percentage health, and they tend to cast heal more often than the healing wave. So if you can blow up the Priest, you're able to then kick the Hexer, is like the general rule of thumb. But of course it just depends on your group's ability to do damage and your ability to like kick and CC. So then there's the healing wave at 50% health. We get the kick, and then I want to just make sure my stacks don't go too high from the bleed that these warriors apply to me. Again, like I said, this hallway is pretty hard to pull aggressively. Just once this pack dies, we go into the next one. You don't ever want to use the urn here. There's no reason to. All you have to do is commit like a leg sweep or a blind here. So we have the blind that comes out there. Plus my roar is up in 5, but I think they die beforehand. And I had War Stomp still too. So then we're going to kill this Hexer by itself. And then the next pull is what we're going to use the urn on. So this Hexer should die pretty quick. I just accidentally hit a button. Oh, nice. I like restarted it. Beautiful. Now I'm giving spoilers. Oh, shit. Where was I? Okay, so we just killed the Hexer, and then we're going to pull this group back. As you can see, I can line of sight here, and then this puts them in range of the totem for the most part, except the one Priest. Oh, no, we got him. It's pretty much this line here. This line right here, these pillars, as long as they pass this threshold, it should stun them. So the urn is, I think, back in this corner. It has like a 35 or 40 yard range, so it pretty much covers like this. So if you line of sight on this corner, right as they round it, they should get hit. Again, same thing here. We're killing Priest first, followed by Hexer. I think we need to use Weapons of Order there though. So at this point we were debating like, hey, should we commit cooldowns to this pull to blow it up, or should we just like save it for Hakar? But then we missed the kick on the healing wave. Then the Priest went back to full health. So then I think I called at this point. I was like, let's just commit to the Hexer and kill it. Because we're still able to kick. And then Para died to Blade Storms. So I tried to get a battle res. He didn't take it because he hit release before the res went off. So he's running back. So I'm taking a lot of damage from Grievous and from the bleed. I proc cheat death there. We're trying to kill the Hexer before the heal. We get a Volcanic Plume kick on it, or knock on it, without kicking. Heal goes off again. We get the Hunter kick. I'm cutting back to try to cut out the bleed. I'm thinking my healer's just not healing me for no fucking reason. And I didn't know that he's like just getting back now. So that was a little bit of a shit show. Probably our worst or like least clean pull in here. And then, of course, the priest is then going to go down, followed by the 2 Deathwalkers. And, ironically enough, if we just used True Shot, the boss would have been dead, or that pull would have been dead. But we now have Weapons of Order coming back up, Res Arrow is up, we have True Shot, we have Void Form. I think we have Ashen, Wings, Aura Master, we have everything for this boss. So we're pretty excited. We have 8.5 minutes left going into Hakar, followed by Muzala. We have our count. We finished that, that last pull finished our count. And we're going to go right in with a nice fat pot. We're going to pop Incarn, we're going to have Lust. We're going to be going to town on Hakar. Now, Hakar was nerfed in 9.1, or going into 9.1. Essentially what they did is they made it, the biggest change that they made was what used to happen is he would cast Blood Barrier, and during Blood Barrier, he would continue channeling up energy. So if you weren't able to break Blood Barrier, he would then re-channel Blood Barrier, and you would have this constant issue where like you couldn't actually damage the boss. Now, they made it so when he's channeling Blood Barrier, he no longer obviously gains energy. It just resets back to 0, which is a huge change. And then on top of that, the Necrotic Wound that I talked about earlier from the Executioner mob will actually reduce the size of his Blood Barrier. So if you're in a group that feels like you don't have a lot of single target damage, you can actually take that to reduce the size of his shield, which is kind of like just a cool interaction that I like about the new affix. Obviously, like I mean, I have my issues with the new affix, but that is a part of me that actually kind of enjoys it. I don't know if the Necrotic Wound stacks though. Like I don't know if all 3 DPS take it, if it actually does like a 30% reduction, because I think it stacks up to 10, or it stacks up to 5, reducing their healing by 2% per stack. So obviously 5 times 2 is 10. I went to elementary school. And I don't know if you can stack it though. So I don't know if like all 3 of our DPS had it, it would do 30%. That would be kind of nutty. It's something that I'm gonna have to play with, but not in an 18. In an 18, I think we went with double volcanic. I think we did Champions Brand. I'd have to go back and look. I think we did Champions Brand, Volcanic, and Necrotic. So I think Kennick took Necrotic, Peanut took Volcanic, and Sack P took Champions Brand, or maybe he took Volcanic. I don't remember exactly. So now we're heading to Hakar, or not Hakar, we just killed Hakar, and we're heading to Muzala. So 5 minutes on Muzala means we could even wipe, and we probably are still able to do it. We're hoping not to, of course. So what I'm doing here is I'm assigning corners. I typically go based off of class colors. So we have obviously the priest being moon, the hunter being green, and then of course there's 2 green classes. So I put blue down for Peanut Walker, and then typically the tank and the healer always go left front. Obviously this depends on your group. You could have anyone go to any spot, but it's obviously easier to have range go to the range spots and melee go to the melee spots. Now, one thing I do want to say on this boss, this is another boss I haven't done a guide on quite yet, but there is a cool interaction that the tank has control over depending on how much damage your group is going to take, and it's really, really important for Grievous weeks, because essentially he has 2 main casts during this phase. He has, of course, Soul Crusher and Cosmic Artifice. Cosmic Artifice puts dots on the group that makes them take periodic damage until they're dispelled, or the debuff expires. And then there's Soul Crusher, which puts a debuff on the tank and hits him for an insane amount. So what's going to happen is right before we phase, actually let me pause this really quick and back up. And it's really important to note this. So right before he phases, it's going to be right after his second Master of Death. It's always going to be about a minute into the fight. So what he's going to do is he's either going to cast Soul Crusher or Cosmic Artifice, dependent on if the tank is in range or not. So if the tank is in melee range, he's going to cast Soul Crusher. And if obviously the tank's not in range, he's going to cast Cosmic Artifice right before he does his Shadow Reality. As you can see, they're both at 10 seconds. So if the tank's not in range, he won't cast this. He'll cast Cosmic Artifice, then Shatter. Why is this important? Because on Grievous weeks, if your group has Grievous and doesn't have the ability to self-heal himself, for example, the Hunter, you're going to have a very, very hard time doing the boss platform. So what you want to do as a tank player is you want to make sure you're in melee range before he splits. So what I'm doing here is I'm making sure I am standing up next to the boss as close as I can before we split. So right here it is Soul Crusher, and then we're off to the races. Now, if I was back here, let's say he went left, right, then front, and I was back dodging front, he would cast Cosmic Artifice. So what I've done as a tank player is I've just always committed to going forward on his last one, right before he does this Shadow Reality, and I'll just use Survival Instincts if I get hit by his shit, because especially on a Grievous week, if your DPS aren't able to top themselves out of Grievous, they are going to die before this phase ends, which is obviously not good. So here we're going to just, DPS are going to use other cooldowns. Weapons of Order just got popped, Void Form got popped with Mindbender, and then of course we had the True Shot and Res Arrow. So everyone's should die here, and then we're going to just go back to the boss platform and finish it up. So it's a nice little dance at the end. We'll maybe speed this up a little bit. We kill. You can channel Totem from about middle of the platform. Some people always run all the way up. If you're tight on time, you can, like, the range on it is like here. Like, you can be actually pretty far away from the Totem and to channel it. And then a good way to tell if everyone has theirs is Bwansamdi is chilling here. If you didn't kill your Totem, there won't be a little Bwansamdi dude hanging out. So you can kind of see which platform is good to go. If you happen to miss one, then you can put down a world marker just to say, hey, next time he does Shadow Reality, everyone needs to go to like front right. Pretty easy to do. Ashen gets popped. Any other cooldowns that we haven't used yet get popped. And we're going to just kill this guy. He dies at 10%. Every Bwansamdi does 20% to him. So essentially what you need to do is take 10% of his life away throughout the whole fight. So at both on pole and during this last phase. Of course, cumulatively, so together. And pretty easy key. We're going to finish with about 3 minutes, 2.5, I think, left. I think it's like 2:36 or something like that, 2:34. But pretty easy fight. No loot. No big loot. At least I don't think any big loot. Double check. Because I got my scale like week 1. Like really early. That I'm really hyped for. So he dies soon. I don't know anymore. I'm just rambling. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I loved this run. I was very, very proud of it. My IO is much higher than this already. So pretty happy with that. So if you guys enjoyed this type of video, obviously let me know in the comment section below. Leave a like. If you have questions about my route, of course, also ask below. My Discord is now fully updated with all my new routes. They're a little bit more conservative, but if you see some of my videos, I will pull some groups together and just be really aggressive with it. But I think they're routes that can like be used by any kind of comp at any skill level to time their keys once they get obviously into the level 10 plus range. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you, fuck man, I'm so bad at these. So coming up, we are definitely going to talk about each of the mini boss mobs as well as like an overview of the seasonal affix. I'm hoping to do a video about the tanking meta currently. It's definitely favored to one tank once again. That tank happens to be what I am playing currently, but more on that later. So a lot of new content to come. So if you liked and you made it somehow this far in the video, please, of course, hit that subscribe button and you'll be notified when I release new content. But I hope for now you are all having a great rest of your night or day or whenever time you decide to watch this video. And I will catch you all in the next one. Take care.